The girlfriend of George Floyd, whose death in Minneapolis last year sparked protests across the world, took the stand today in the trial of Derek Chauvin, the police officer accused of his murder. Courtney Ross cried as she talked about how she first met Mr. Floyd and described their struggle with opioid addiction. Derek Chauvin has pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of murder and 1 of manslaughter. Let's get more from our correspondent Lebo Diseko, who's live in Minneapolis for us tonight. Lebo.
Yeah, Clive, today's testimony was a mixture of both the personal and the shocking. We heard from George Floyd's girlfriend and from the paramedics that attended the scene. Just a warning that viewers may find the footage that was played in court and that you're about to see distressing. A man who enjoyed food, exercise and taking dad selfies. George Floyd's girlfriend of 3 years painting a picture of the man she loved. She told the court about the life that they'd shared, including their addiction.
Our story, it's a classic story of how many people get addicted to opioids. We got addicted and tried really hard to break that addiction many times.
The prosecution wanted to show Mr. Floyd's addiction was not a reflection on his character, but the issue is central to Mr. Chauvin's defense.
For the majority of that time, Mr. Floyd was clean, right?
Yes.
And it was your belief that Mr. Floyd started using again about 2 weeks prior to his death, correct?
I noticed a change in his behavior, yes.
The court heard that Mr. Floyd had previously overdosed and that both the friends with him on the day he died had sold him drugs before. Next on the stand, the paramedics who'd been called out to the scene. Both testified that Mr. Floyd was unresponsive when they arrived.
In a living person, there should be a pulse there. I did not feel one. I suspected this patient to be dead.
And at the moment that you're checking for this carotid pulse, are the officers still positioned on top of Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
For the first time, we heard medical evidence that suggests George Floyd died at this spot. And while that was less emotional than the testimony heard at the start of the day, it was no less impactful. Lebo Diseko, BBC News, Minneapolis.